So hey everyone, I am super excited to open this box up. This is my new airbag setup, and it is the Airlift Loadlifter 7500 XL. I don't want to spoil the surprise, so I'm going to let you see what I see as I open this thing up. I'll tell you, this box weighs over 50 pounds, and this is just the airbag assembly. This isn't including any other hardware. So it's a 75 XL for the Ford Super Duty. This is the kit number 57599. It's essentially a large book that you'll need to read to install it. The brackets in this thing have to be very heavy duty to weigh the box down as much as they do. Hardware bag, about 100 stickers. And here are the brackets. I know this is a reinforcement bracket that actually rests on the frame and attaches to the top of the airbag assembly. Golly, everything is super heavy duty. It's all 1/4 inch thick. These are some massive airbags. So these airbags are 7.5 inches across versus the 6-inch airbags that I had on my previous F350. These are supposed to require less air pressure and actually be a more stable and more heavy-duty bag than what was on my other truck. So this is pretty much everything laid out. A lot of hardware. This is going to be for all my connections. That's the heat shield to prevent the exhaust from melting or damaging the bags. Probably more important than ever with this setup, specifically because the bag has a larger diameter to it. I know these are cradles that cradle on top of the axle to support the bottom of the bag. First thing I'm going to do is assemble the air spring and the brackets. Get everything put on and put together. So hey everyone, once you have the assembly put together, one of the problems you may run into is that actually getting the assembly in place under the truck requires you to squeeze this airbag together, set it in between the axle and the frame of the truck. And the problem is the thing is pretty heavy and it's pretty hard to compress while trying to negotiate into that space. So I'm going to do a little trick here, and I don't think I should have any problems doing it, but I'm going to take a little drill and a step bit I have, and I'm going to drill 2 small holes just on this mounting plate on the outside. As you can see, there's plenty of room on the side, so I'm not going to hit the bag. Put 2 small holes here, then I'm going to run some zip ties through. Zip tie this in a compressed position like that, so once I get under the truck, I have the ability to simply maneuver it into place. It'll make the job a lot easier and a lot quicker. Is compressed, so I'll have a lot more room to work when I want to put this in place. I'm going to do it to the other side now. I'm now going to use my safe jack to lift the back of the truck up slightly. I'm not going to get the tires off the ground, but what I'm going to do is take the weight off of the spring so I have a little bit more clearance under the truck while I am trying to put the airbags in. Got to remove the shocks in order to get clearance so the airbag can fit back here. On the passenger side, you don't need to remove the shock because you'll put the airbag assembly in from the back here and it's not going to interfere with trying to mount it on that side. You'll need to remove this little vent line hose attachment right here and then zip tie it to this rigid brake line, or the mount that touches here, the support brace will make contact with it. Be sure that this bolt is on the inside between the brake line and the axle. So the brake line is going to be on the outside of the bolt. That's very, very important. On the other side, you'll have your parking brake line that also needs to be on the outside. So basically, these bolts are going to hug the axle. So on the passenger side, you're going to have this line right here, which is an O2 sensor line, and you're going to want to unplug it from the frame because one of your airbag reinforcement brackets is going to mount where that is. And then you can zip tie it back in place when you're done. So if you choose to do this install yourself, one thing you're going to want to keep in mind when you get to the passenger side, you're going to have a little bit of an issue with the clearance between this bolt coming down, which I've wrapped in electrical tape, and this brake line right here. This brake line goes on the inside of the bolt, not the outside. On the driver's side, this brake line's on the outside of the bolt with about 1/4 inch of space. On the passenger side, the brake line's on the inside of the bolt with about maybe 1/8 of an inch of space in the back. Now, in order to get this bolt to prevent from pressing up against this brake line, you're going to have to tilt it that way slightly. So if you look, it's at just a slight angle this way, and that'll get it around here. The second clearance issue you may have is down here at the bottom where this bolt comes through and rubs right up against the mounting bracket for the shock, as well as makes contact with the sway bar. This is only because the truck's in the air. Once you get the truck back on the ground, this part right here will lower, and this will space away from there by about 3/4 of an inch. So you'll have plenty of clearance once you lower the truck. And as you can see, I cut the bottom of the bolt off right below the nut, and that's also to help with clearance, because if you have this much thread sticking out, even when you put the truck down, it's going to become awfully close to this sway bar in the back. As you can see, I've mounted everything up now. I put this U-bolt across the back leaf spring block, and it mounts to the plate up here. I use the top hole. There's a top and bottom hole on each side. I use the top holes because that's what the instructions showed. And then at the same time, with the 4.5 inch axle shaft, you're going to need to select in your kit the right brace right here for the size axle that you have. And this one's specifically for the 4.5 inch axle shaft. And this is just an additional bracing for the airbag. Because it's a 7.5 inch airbag, it's going to go this way outside of your normal assembly. Typically your airbag would be right here, but this one, of course, is much wider in diameter, so it's going to go out this way a little bit more.
2 hours later.
So it's pretty late at night here, and I've been working on this for about the past 4 hours, getting everything done. It took about 2.5 hours to get the airbags installed. This was a much more difficult kit than the regular airbags, or the 6-inch airbags. These are 7.5 inch in diameter and definitely take up more room and are a little bit, more tricky to get into place. However, I got everything installed. This is where I mounted the air compressor right here. This is a control box right here, which actually sends air to everything. Also receives the signals and commands from the wireless remote that I have. This is the same setup that I had on my F350, just with different bags on this one. Here's a look in the back at the massive airbags, part of the 7500 XL kit. You can see how I wrapped the threads on this bolt with electrical tape. It's well clear of the brake line, but I just like to be safer than sorry. There's the airbag on the opposite side. You can see how it goes around the outside of the brake line right there. Again, I wrapped it in electrical tape just to keep from any contact from ever happening. All the bolts and fasteners have been checked. Everything's secure and tight. But that's it. Hey guys, so I want to take a moment here to show you how I wired up the main power lead for the airbag system that I have in my truck, which is the Airlift 7500 XL, and I'm using the wireless air control system. So under the hood here near the driver's side towards the back, you have these wires. They're upfitter wires. They're generally bundled up down here with the tie wrap, kind of like this. And the first auxiliary wire is going to be a 25 amp circuit. You have 4 25 amp circuits and 2 40 amp circuits, so you can power just about anything with the upfitter wires that they include. The wire gauge is much thicker than it was from the 2011 through 2016 package. Much thicker. It looks like it's anywhere from 10 to 12 gauge depending on which wire it is. I use the auxiliary 1 wire, and it's connected to a 15 amp fuse which goes to the airlift control module under the truck, which also powers the air compressor. I have both the remote or accessory wire and the power wire ran together simply because the upfitter switch is already wired to the ignition, so it's not going to be on all the time, and I can flip it on with the switch from the dash. And then the ground wire is connected here to my ground terminal on the battery. From inside the truck, here are my upfitter switches. Auxiliary 1 is connected to my air compressor. To turn the system on or off, I simply turn the switch on or off. Again, it is tied to the ignition of the truck, so the truck has to be running for these first 4 auxiliary switches to receive power. The last 2 40 amp switches, I've already done the switch under the hood to allow these to operate full time if I have auxiliary lighting or anything else I need to use with the truck not running. I have dual batteries up front as well, so I'm not too concerned about battery drainage. Anyways, auxiliary 1 switch is on, so the air compressor is receiving power. And here's the controller. This is the wireless air controller. Gives me independent control of each airbag. Right now I have 5 pounds of pressure, but if I go to 15, probably can't hear on here, but you can see the pressure of the bags gradually increasing as more air is pumped into them. I can change to individual bags, so if I see one side is leaning more than the other, or if I need to level one specific bag out, I can make changes to which bag I want to level out or which bag I want to add more pressure to. Because these bags are 7 inches in diameter, they are a much larger bag than the 6-inch bags that normally you get with your airlift kit, and you don't have to use as much air pressure to achieve the same levelness that you would have had to with the prior bags. But I can raise or lower the pressure from the remote wirelessly from anywhere outside of the truck. Now if I want to raise or lower the bags, I can simply raise or increase the pressure here with the remote. The back of the truck is currently lifting. The system will shut off. Okay, so the compressor is now turned off, and you will be able to hear whenever I reduce pressure. So I'm going to drop it down to 5 psi, and you'll hear that. And it shut off when it hits 5 psi. So this wraps up my short video demonstrating the new airbag system and how I wired it up on my 2017 F350 dually. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.